What was life like before smartphones? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. I think life felt more special. With things not so easily accessible, you appreciated them so much more. Remember scanning the TV guide to see your favorite movie was going to be playing on Thursday, and then clearing your schedule and plunking in front of the TV, the only TV in the living room with your whole family, or your favorite song come on the radio, hoping soon you'll have the cash to buy the CD, or using a tape deck pressed to another tape deck to record it, and how precious it was to have music on demand. There was so much time and space and energy to pursue things. The definition of bored was different. We couldn't just feed ourselves cheap Instagram or TikTok crap to pass the time. We found real stuff to do that actually enriched our lives. I really feel like smartphones and the internet erased the highs because of instant gratification. Story 2. Days seemed to be so much longer. Felt like there was so much more time for things. Life was private. When I saw someone I hadn't seen for a long time, it was genuinely interesting to see how they were doing and the crazy adventure they had been living. Dang, I need to get rid of my smartphone. Life is honestly worse with one. These things are a ball and chain. I'll go camping now and disconnect, and I feel so fully reset. Camping does that for me either way, but it's a great feeling. I think I need to start going places without it. Story 3. The iPhone came out the year before I graduated HS, and honestly, before everyone had a camera in their pocket, everyone was excited to be on camera. Just check out any nostalgia videos of high schools in the 2000s and you'll see. We were all stoked to be on camera. We didn't fuss about what we looked like beforehand. We just hopped in. I remember being excited to get home and hop on my PC to message my friends on AIM and thinking to myself, wouldn't this be so cool if I could do it from my phone? Of course, texting was a thing and there was an AIM to phone method, but texting sucked because of the number pads and it cost money per text. Honestly, I was always obsessed with the newest tech thing back then. Now I'm not. Technology has stagnated, especially in the phone realm. Everything looks like the same candy bar. I miss those days. Story 4. Didn't have access to see what horrible thing was happening everywhere in the world. It's exhausting seeing people blown up, hurt, starving, abused from every corner of the globe right on your phone. It's not a burden we were designed to have, and I think it's why younger people are so downtrodden and have no hope. You can't see pain from the whole world every day and not feel beaten down. Story 5. Life before is more interesting and more enjoyable before smart. Have you ever tried to text someone without looking at your phone? Your muscle memory already knows what and where to type on your phone cause you already memorize which key you are going to press. Imagine texting you crush while on your class without being caught by your teachers that you are using your phone. Imagine that. Story 6. People were friendlier. Folks just talked more. And personally, I read a lot more books back then. I started college in 2002, dropped out after a few years, and went back to finish my degree in 2012. During those 10 years, cell phones and iPods became ubiquitous, and I noticed that none of the students just hung out and talked and joked around together anymore. They all had their earbuds in. They were all on their phones talking to their existing friends or on social media. They weren't looking to build community. It was really lonely by comparison to before smartphones, where you were kinda forced to make friends, be social, and actually have a good time together IRL. Story 7. Much more peaceful. No compulsion to check social media. Bullying from schoolmates stopped when you entered your home. The flip side, however, we got stuck more than once in a dead car and had to walk a long way to get help. Phones were charged per minute, and elderly relatives were reluctant to use them for that reason. I miss my grandfather's passing because it took a while to get in touch with me when he was rushed to the hospital, so it's not all bad. Story 8. We had to work a little bit harder to get our dopamine fix. Some of us actually had to go out and talk to people. We had to go experience things in person. Hearing a great song was super special, as we did have access to the entire category of any song ever recorded on our fingertips. Taking a picture of something was very special, and it had to be worthy of the film and the cost of getting it developed. Taking a movie was a darn near production with a camcorder, and again it had to be worthwhile. When people were stopped at red lights, they would actually start driving when the light turned green. Now many people don't even notice when the light has changed. Story 9. I'm 20 and can't remember a world-class society where smartphones were not commonplace. My parents had them. Eventually, a lot of my friends had them when we were around 9 to 10-ish. unlimited access to the internet, social media as it evolved, YouTube, Musical.ly, if you know, Snapchat, Instagram, etc., etc. I'm not going to go into why I think it messed a lot of people up. Hopefully it will make us smarter, more empathetic, or knowledgeable in the long run besides all the brain rot. But I often think of how it's kind of like Pandora's box. Lots are on their phones during their lunch breaks, waiting in line, at school, at work, basically any time. Social media has made so many impacts on how we interact, how we relate to one another and communicate and entertain ourselves. We can't go back, so how was life before? Story 10. I remember spending much more time with other things as a kid-teen, meeting friends, going out into nature, drawing a lot. Now, I often think I could draw some things, but then I'm just lazy scrolling my phone for hours. Also, you couldn't get answers to random questions so easily. You would ask your parents or friends maybe, but if they didn't know the answer either, you had to live with not knowing the answer. You could try to find something about your specific question in a lexicon, but that was too annoying mostly. Now, if a random question pops up into my head in the middle of the night, I have to grab my phone instantly and Google it. And I kind of miss going out for hours and not being available for anyone. As a kid, I sometimes was outside all day till the sun started to set, and my parents were okay with not reaching me. Story 11. If you wanted to go somewhere, you had to already know how to get there, or consult a paper map which you kept in your car. If you needed to call somewhere, a store, your bank, the vet, a car repair place, you had to look the number up. This could be on your desktop computer at home, or longer ago than that, in a phone book. If you had a random thought like, when was air conditioning invented? Or, how far is it to Argentina? Or how old is Dick Van Dyke? Generally, you would just keep wondering. You weren't used to being constantly entertained. On a car trip, or in a waiting room, or in a long line, you would watch other people, think about things, maybe read a book. People were more comfortable just sitting with their thoughts. People took a lot fewer pictures. If you went on vacation or had a family event, you would bring a camera and take pictures. Then you would drop the film off at a store and get your pictures a few days later, an hour later if you wanted to spend a lot. You never knew till you picked them up if the shots were any good, or if someone's eyes were closed or your finger got in the way of the lens. Story 12. Are we talking life before smartphones or life before the internet? A lot of the comments seem to be answering the latter. Life in that 2000s to 2010 window where a lot of us had internet but not a smartphone wasn't all that much differently, honestly. More preparation. If you wanted navigation in your car, you got on a computer and printed out directions, or you got a special device for your car like a Garmin. Much less texting and more emailing, live chatting, because a lot of us still had limits on how many texts you could send and how many characters they could be. I became a very fast typist largely because of chatting on AOL to my friends, to check social media or Google random questions. You waited until you had computer access. This would either be at home or at the library, student center, internet cafe, something like that. There was still a mix of relying on print sources like phone books and newspapers. Some people had switched to everything online and some hadn't. It was more common for a business not to have a web presence. Ordering online was still relatively new and you could still fill out the little form in the catalog and order by mail. I think my family switched over to online shopping around 2005-ish. It honestly wasn't that different, just more tethered to home or wherever you could find a computer. Resources were a bit more scattered. I liked it, and as much as I do enjoy my smartphone now, I wouldn't mind going back to that era. It felt like a good balance of having information available without always being in your face. That said, having smartphones be so powerful and so inexpensive has transformed the way billions of people in developing countries can access education and the global economy. So I wouldn't really want to go back in time. Story 13. You memorized so many phone numbers. I still remember the number of old friends' homes. IDK if anyone actually still lives there though. And you had to keep a little book of contact info for everyone from best friends to pastors to your favorite plumber cleaning service. The yellow pages were a real thing and they were really thick. The attorney section was huge. And yay, if you were traveling and in a pickle, you may look something up in the yellow pages in a phone booth. And if no one answered, you might just rip that whole page out and try again later. You would leave messages for friends on their home recording device that used a physical tape cassette. If you were traveling, you could leave a message with the reception and hope that they caught them, or reception would write a note and have it delivered to their room. Called ID was a game changer for solicitors, and even for the chatty neighbor you really didn't want to deal with. If something was urgent, it might have to wait. If you can't find them at a phone immediately, it would just be whenever they got home and decided to check their answering machine. And of course, driving somewhere or walking somewhere and knocking on someone's door was much less strange, especially for children. Edit. Oh, and you asked people for directions, and you looked at maps. Maybe you had the old Rand McNally in the glove box. Traveling around Louisiana was insane. They had a big book and you would know which neighborhoods were on which pages. So you could tell someone which page in the book and then tell them like a G and 1 to 9, and you would coordinate the letters and number and find the location like that. The maps in my pocket is what made me get an iPhone. Story 14. I don't go that far back, but one of the best things was going to Blockbuster. Definitely miss that. Spending hours looking for that perfect movie, or a movie you've been looking for but is always rented out. Then one trip there it is. Simple things like that. Now I can watch anything ever made. It doesn't have any adventure to it. You'd go to Blockbuster, all your friends would pick one each. On movie nights, friends that pick a bad movie, just awful movie, would get roasted the entire time. IDK, it seems like everyone hates each other now. Back then we didn't judge each other on base layer stuff, like skin color or gender. We'd all just hang out and we were just people. We almost never talked about politics either. People over the COVID stuff, the election, literally disowned each other, families over basically nothing. We didn't do that back then. Your opinion was your opinion, we might argue. We might fight, but we'd never hold a grudge. People were way closer back then. I'm talking mainly about the late 80s, early 90s. We've got cool stuff now, don't get me wrong. And I hate to say it because those times are gone, but things were way better back then. They really were. Story 15. My therapist made a good point. Before cell phones came along, people had a better grasp, generally, of anxiety. We had to adjust and develop resilience because things were so uncertain. We didn't have the security then that phones give us now. Now we can't handle stress and anxiety as well anymore because we have a constant security blanket. We don't have to worry about emergencies and such because we have a constant lifeline. But alternatively, if something bad actually does happen, we are ill-equipped with the mental fortitude it would take to overcome the issue. Back before cell phones, I thought nothing of hopping in my car and going on long trips by myself. Now, I panic if I don't have my phone and can't go anywhere without it. It's like taking a step back instead of forward. But you mentioned smartphones. Specifically, before smartphones, you sat down in front of your PC at your desk or at the library to look up the information that you needed. Smartphones have made everything easier, and we've all been spoiled because of them. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below.